Hello and welcome to the Healthified Family Podcast. My name is Corey and this is my lovely wife, Christy.
Hello.
Today's discussion is kind of a interesting one. We're going to discuss wisdom in parenting. And we don't have like a set number of things to talk about. We just want to share some insights that Christy and I have gained over the last 15 years and having 10 children, and what kernels of wisdom we've gained and hope to gain in the future. So, do you have any announcements or anything, sweetheart?
No.
No. Okay. So let's dive into it. The first thing I was thinking about, and we were thinking about, is what do we wish we knew now? Like, what do we know now that we wish we knew when we first started having children? So, why don't you start us off? What's one thing you wish you knew when we got married about having children that we now know?
Um, I wish I knew that they don't remember all the things and all the things you do and all the toys and all of the stuff. What they remember is like your consistency, your love, playing with them. You know, you don't need all the bells and whistles. They can have a super happy childhood. I mean, I remember we spent money taking them to like Disneyland or, like different, the fair, aquariums, different stuff. And I'm not saying don't do that, but like they'll say, "Oh, remember when we did this?" And they're like, "No, I don't remember that." And I'm like, "No, wait, like, no,
It was
surely
a
you
big event at the
remember."
time. They were super excited.
Yeah, and they loved it. Um, and now they don't even remember. But, some of the things that they do remember from those ages are like, remember when we went to grandma's house and we did whatever, and it's like, okay. So if you have the money and you want to do those things, like, that's cool, do it. But don't feel like you have to, make all these memories with big fancy gifts or big fancy trips. It's the small things that they really love and makes a big difference in their lives.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the wisdom there is to just realize the most important moments in children's lives aren't ones that you plan. You have no control over what moments they will consider as important to them. Like, it's just they're just moments that come and no one can predict when they're going to come. It's just, and I think it has a lot to do with their emotions. It's just moments that they connect with strong, powerful emotions, and those you can't really predict, in my opinion.
Yeah. Nope.
Like, I mean, sure, they're excited and they're super excited to go do something, but children are super excited to do a lot of things. But that doesn't mean it has like a lasting emotional significance.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, take them on a hike, get super excited about it, hype it up, but you don't have to do all of the.
In the long run, I would say in the long run, excitement is not a super powerful, important emotion for a child's development.
Yeah. Yeah.
The part about like what we all parents want our children to have like these great memories, and we want them to have just memories of their childhood that are super awesome, so we want to give them super awesome experiences. And when we ask our children like what moments are most important to them, it literally has nothing to do with what we thought was important at the time, and even what they were super excited about at the time.
It's
Like
the connection.
having grandpa sitting on grandpa's lap and him telling stories and simple events.
Yeah, it's connection. It's like, I remember when, we did this thing together. I remember when you um played tea party with me, or I remember when you did special time, mom, like, because I will do special time with the kids, and that's just one-on-one time with me and one of the kids, and maybe it's 20 minutes, maybe it's 2 hours. I mean, I don't have a set limit, but we'll go to the park or we'll play a game in their room or whatever. They get to pick. Obviously, they don't get to pick like we're gonna go, you know, on a shopping spree or whatever. But if they want to go play in the backyard, if they want to go in their room, if they want to actually take a bike ride or something. Um, anyway, they love special time, and that's way better to them than almost any like physical object I could give them. You know, I could give them toys, I could give them candy, I could give them all sorts of things. But if I were to offer special time, they'd take it over almost any other thing.
I mean, it's like Christmas, right? Christmas gifts are rarely memorable, you know, in the long term.
Right.
And would you say that how you conduct, you call it special time, but calling it special time doesn't make it special unless it's actually special. So what have you learned about how to make special time special, like more memorable?
Um, for one, I kind of let them choose the activity, and two, um, I it's just me and that kid, and that's one thing that makes it special because they don't have to compete for my time. So
Your attention.
just them and me, and I'm just connecting with them. I'm not on my phone. I'm not reading a book. I'm not disconnected. I mean, we're connected the whole time. For special time, when it's special time, I'm reading to them, I'm playing with them, I'm drawing with them, I'm painting with them, we're riding a bike, we're playing basketball, whatever they choose, we're doing that activity, and we're connected, we're focused. They have my full attention. And that's what makes it special versus, like, okay, we're going to go play at the park, and I sit on a bench and they play at the park while I'm on my phone on a bench. Like that would not be special time, right? So, yeah, it's the connection and the having my full attention, the presence.
And I think that to a certain degree, you don't have to stress about this sort of thing. I just think you can relax as like a younger parent, like you can relax in your efforts to try and create. Like you don't have to try so hard, buy expensive gifts. The more expensive the gift, it doesn't equate to more memorable and more powerful of showing your love to your child. Like you can kind of relax on those extravagant efforts because they don't necessarily lead to the results you're expecting. And
Yeah, less is
and in fact,
more.
that's
Less
yeah,
is
that's
more.
a good way of saying
And
it.
there's so many things we could do, right? We can get so caught up, so many things vying for our attention. I need to have like I need to have my girls in ballet, and they need to be in, gymnastics, and they need to be in tap, and they need to be swimming, and they also should be doing, cheer, and maybe I need them to be doing what are they called? Talent shows or beauty contests, and I need to make sure that they are the most talented. They have to have their piano lessons, and like you could just like never stop. Oh, and they have to be really good scientists, so I should sign them up for space camp. And I need to make sure that they're outdoorsy, so I should have them going to some kind of little nature group. Like you could just be constantly doing, 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 but you don't need to, because it's like all those frills, all that extra stuff. It's cool. You can do some of those things, but don't do all of those things. It disconnects you from your child, and it makes you a chauffeur, and your kid is just like exhausted, overstimulated, and it's too much. But we feel like I didn't get to do all of those things, and so I want them to experience it. Or maybe maybe we're like, I did all of these things and so they should do it too. But did we do all of those things in one school year? Like in the first 5 years of our life, right? Like, no. And well, I always wished I was good at pottery, so I'm going to put my 5-year-old in a pottery class. Like, come on. Like, maybe they have no interest in that. Wait till they're like 12 or 14, and if they show interest in clay and pottery, cool. Like, then do it, right? But we have this with Instagram and Facebook and all this social media and everybody posting what their kids are doing. It's like we have to keep up with the Joneses kind of thing, and I've
In
got to
new
make
new
sure,
ways.
yeah, I've got to make sure my
Because
kid has
our
horse riding
kids, yeah,
lessons and
yeah,
but
kids have
don't.
always like been jealous of other kids. Oh, that kid got to go travel to such and such place. I wish we could travel.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
how come we've never been to Europe? I don't know, maybe we'll go to Europe someday. That'd be fun. Kind of sounds like a lot with 10 kids, but maybe someday we'll go. But it's like we're not failures as parents because we've never taken our family to Europe. We're not failures as parents because our kids don't know how to ride a horse, or whatever thing it is, right?
Mm.
There's so many people put pressure on themselves that, like, I don't expect other people to, your kid can't ride a horse. Your kid's never been to Europe. Like, I don't make those judgments on other people, but we make them on ourselves. Piece of wisdom is like, let it go. Let all those judgments go. They're completely unnecessary, and you can live a fantastic and wonderful and happy life without doing any of those things. It's about connecting.
Yeah. One thing I would tell myself, uh, if I were to have a conversation with myself after we got married and started having kids, the me now, it's okay to be aware of this fact, but you got to give yourself grace. Give yourself grace and forgiveness. Like, you're not going to be perfect. You know, it's just not going to happen. But just be aware, and this is me talking to myself. Just be aware that children are sponges, right? I mean, that's obvious. They're just going to absorb and absorb and absorb for those first 7 years, like everything. Most of what they're absorbing, just like how they learn to walk and talk. They observe and they copy. And so no matter how hard you try to tell them how to behave correctly, like, for the most part, they're just going to copy your behavior, for better or for worse. So that comes out in unexpected ways. Like, I think back to how after like the third or fourth kid, I stopped chasing our kids. Like, it's so fun to chase a little 2-year-old, and just have fun with it. But that's only cute for a short period of time, and then it's not cute when you're trying to get them dressed, and then it's not cute when you're trying to tell them to come do something with you or go out the door, and you're trying to get them ready, trying to get their shoes on, and they think it's a game to run away from you, and it's like, boy, I taught them that, didn't I? Like, and then you get mad at them, and it's like, well, they didn't get that transition, that it went from being fun and a game. Like, they just don't transition like
Yeah.
that. So just being aware of those kinds of things. So like nowadays, like the twins, I just was outside playing with them for a little bit, and I literally didn't chase them. If they thought I was chasing them, I would stop. If they chased me, I'm like, yeah, you can chase me all day long. And Christian too, he was chasing me, but like, I'll chase Christian, like, for very short periods of time, and then I'll just stop because I don't want it. I don't. It's like, I'll do it for a very short period of time and then stop. And he kind of gets that. Like, it's Dad rarely. I'm trying to avoid. I mean, sometimes I forget, but and that's the thing. Like, I'm not perfect about it. I just realize, and I try to not get upset about it when, okay, sometimes, and Sean, and not Sean Luke, Gabe is at that age, right, where he's running away, and it's annoying. And I'm like, well, yeah, it is
Yeah.
kind of fun. Well,
It's like,
but
wait,
all right,
you're too
I
old
gotta
for
deal with
this.
those consequences because I do enjoy chasing them a little bit. I just try not to do it too much.
Yeah. Well, and that's like super typical, and it's one of the things that like they've done studies like kids need both a mother and a father, right? And the father, part of the father's role is to roughhouse with the kids. Like they need a little bit of that play and roughhouse that moms, not that they can't do, but it's just not the same. And in these studies, it's like this is very important part of a kid's like life experience. So dads naturally do that. It's great, but sometimes it comes back to bite them in the butt because they're like roughhousing and then it's like bedtime and the kids are all riled up and then they're frustrated and he's like, hey, you did that. Like maybe you should roughhouse before dinner, instead of like roughhousing right before bed. And then the kids don't want to go to sleep and then you're frustrated, go to bed. Well, you just taught them it was time to play. So yeah.
And there's no solution, perfect solution to anything. There's only trade-offs, so it's like,
Right.
yeah, that's another thing. I think there's no perfect solution. There's only trade-offs. That would be something I would tell myself. Like that's a principle. It's hard to explain, uh, but you do the best you can. You make the choices that you think are the best, but there's no perfect solution
Well, and then
or
when you know
perfect answer.
better, you do better.
Yeah,
If you don't know better, then okay, you can't beat yourself up for what you didn't know. And once you know better, then you do better. And if you falter and you go back to old habits and whatever, you give yourself grace and you say, okay, I'm going to try again. Right? If we don't like the kid's tone of voice, maybe we should watch our own tone of voice.
they're just
If,
copying.
right. If we don't
And
like,
they learn it from media too. I mean, it's also movies. If you
right,
don't like the way, if you think, if my children are gonna see that, whatever they see they copy. So if they see little children talking certain tones of voice to their parents in movies, like they're gonna copy that and mimic that.
right. Yeah. I mean, I remember when um, Toy Story came out, I was like 12 or 13. I don't know. I was pretty young. And um, I remember that some parents were like, I won't let my child watch Toy Story. And I thought, that's so dumb. There's like nothing inappropriate in Toy Story. And of course, as like a young teen, you don't, that it's Toy Story. It's about toys. And then when I was a parent, I remember watching Toy Story. I just remember watching Toy Story as a parent, and David was probably 5 or 6 months old. And I was like, oh, I'm not letting my child watch this. And you think, well, okay, I don't even remember anything inappropriate in Toy Story. It's not so much the things that happen in the movie so much as, Woody and Buzz, you idiot, like calling each other names and little boys blowing up their toys and like this is maybe not actually what we want, like, because that they'll copy that, right? Like, do you want your son to strap rockets to his toys and blow them up? Like,
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, and
do
I
you
think
want
I
them
think
name calling?
having 7 boys, that is something that I've observed enough times to kind of say that's kind of how boys are. The first thing when they're little, they want to take things apart. Like boys inherently want to see how things operate.
Right.
When
And
they so
that's good.
they're constantly taking things apart, and they have the desire to put things back together, but they lack that skill. And the older they get, the better they get at putting things back together, and the less they take things apart because they already understand how things work. And so, like, boys have that natural curiosity to uh, see how things tick, so to speak,
Right.
see the clockwork.
Yeah.
Which is why Legos are so popular. And like
Right.
David, I just remember watching David, because again, we got him Legos, and we had toys, and he would break things, and he would break things, and he would break things, and then by the time he got to the age where he was starting to build the Legos, Sean Luke was the dissembler, and he was taking things apart. And so David has had to mature. He's had many levels of maturing as because he still plays with Legos, and
Right.
he's a teenager, but he's almost out of that phase. But it's just kind of funny to see that evolution of, oh, don't break my Legos, to like now if his Legos break, he's excited to put it back together. Like they're breaking now they break them for a different reason. It's like, I want to disassemble this because I want to reconfigure it in a new way. I want to recreate this.
Right.
So they don't get so upset if a little sibling breaks something, because they're like excited about the possibility of remaking it better.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can channel that energy, the curiosity and the
Yeah.
destructive nature into something more
It's not destructive. Yeah,
constructive.
it's not destructive in essence. It's curiosity.
Right. Well, I mean, it can be destructive though. Like if they're
It
drawing
can.
on your walls and they're like breaking things, like it can be destructive. But if you can channel it into like we only draw in book on and not in books. Sorry, I have like notepads, like drawing notepads. Like we only draw in your drawing book. We only draw on paper. Like we don't draw on the walls. We don't draw in reading books. Um, that's really all it takes is just a little bit of guidance. Then let their curiosity and creativity go. But we don't have to like, yeah, it's hard as a parent to not like want to control it and like, oh, you just break everything. You're ruining stuff all the time. Breathe. Okay. He likes to draw. This is good. He's a little artist. Great. Channel that. Oh, he likes to build things. Oh, he likes to take things apart. Oh, he likes to play with daddy's tools. Channel that into something productive instead of just chasing them around the house and trying to clean up after their messes all day long, which I
Yeah.
feel like I did with the first few kids. Like, I was like, can you just hold still and not make a mess? Like, really? Did I just like expect a child to hold still and not make a mess? Like, come on. That's the whole point of their childhood, is to move and explore and discover and not just sit still and make my life easier by not having to clean up after them.
Yeah. And I don't know. You tell me. I've kind of done this off and on, but you can tell me, because I remember reading. You can tell me if you think this has had an effect on our children. I remember reading somewhere. This was probably 7 years ago, but it was like children have heard the word no X amount of times by the time they're this age, and Y amount of times. Like, heard the word no like 10 times as more as they've heard the word yes. And so off and on, when I remember, and especially when they're learning to speak, like one of the first words kids learn to say is no. And I'll just have a competition with our kids sometimes when I'm sparked by them saying no, and I'll just like, we'll have a competition who can say them saying no and me saying yes. But I remember I did it more. Well, I guess the twins are starting to speak, so I've done it with one of them where I was having a yes contest. I say yes, 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 and they say no, and I don't quit. I just keep telling them yes. Uh, but I remember just trying to think like, well, if they hear the word no so much, and I think you've tried to do this as well, like to say the word no less, say
Mm-hmm.
other things around, like, well, like maybe try and say if it's something you do want them to have, but it's like candy, say later, you can have it later. Trying to avoid, I think we do try to avoid the word no. And then, when I remember, I try to say the word yes
Yeah.
more. And I tell me if you think this is correct, but I know when I started doing that, my intent was so that no is more meaningful. When we say no, it's more meaningful, has more impact. And I think that as is something, maybe not on the oldest kids because we didn't start with them, but on some of the younger kids, uh, no has a greater impact. When we tell them no, they listen more. They're more understanding of like, okay, I shouldn't do that, as well as they're more sensitive to no.
Yeah. I mean, I remember shifting to saying, yes, you can play outside in a half hour, or yes, you can have ice cream after dinner or this weekend. Mom, can I do this? Instead of no, 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 yes. And then give them the time when it's appropriate for them to do that instead of the constant no, because yeah, they hear that so much from, it's just everywhere.
And it's
I want to
something
do
we
this
aren't
thing.
perfect at remembering. I know.
Hmm.
I forget that all the time. So
Yeah,
when I remember that lesson, I try to apply it.
right.
Because it's just one of those things that we have a habit of saying no because our parents were telling us no when we were kids. And
Yeah, it's just society does it, right? Like that they know when I'm not connecting to them and they will like make me connect. They're like, "Mom, you didn't hear what I said." And they'll repeat. I'm like, "I'm sorry. I was distracted. You're right. Okay. Let's discuss this." Right? And I think that's important for them to know that they can approach me and let me know, "Hey, I don't feel heard." Instead of just like wandering off, mom never pays attention.
we're glad you could be a part of it and join us. And there is so much to learn. Just give yourself grace and thank you for listening. Bye bye.